If you're setting up a home office or a small server rack and the idea of a power outage makes you break out in a cold sweat, you're probably looking for something that just works, no surprises, no wasted space, and a price that feels sensible when you look at the bill of materials later. You want a UPS that will actually keep your critical gear alive long enough to save your work, not just a fancy box with a long list of features you'll never use. The thing that keeps most people up at night is the fear of buying the wrong unit. Maybe it's too small, maybe the outlets don't match what you already have, maybe the management software is a nightmare. That's why I spent a few evenings digging through forums, comparing spec sheets, and watching a handful of real-world videos before I decided which CyberPower model to test out. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's talk about the CyberPower OL2K2RTHD, a 2200 VA 1800W double conversion online UPS that promises a high-density design. At first glance, high-density sounds like a marketing term, but in the context of a 2U rack unit it actually means you get a lot of power capacity squeezed into a footprint that fits comfortably in a standard 19-inch rack without forcing you to rearrange everything else. That's a real win for anyone who's already fighting for rack space in a home lab or a cramped office closet. Who should buy this? If you're running a workstation with a decent graphics card, a couple of external hard drives, maybe a small NAS, and you need at least 15-20 minutes of runtime when the lights flicker, this UPS is sized just right. The 1800W continuous load rating means you can comfortably support a single desktop PC with a GPU, a 24-inch monitor, and a USB-C dock, and still have enough juice left for a modest router or a UPS-protected Ethernet switch. The 7-outlet 6NEMA 520R and 1L520R cover most small office plugs without the need for adapters, which is a relief when you've got a mix of equipment. If you're only protecting a laptop or an Alanone printer, you'll probably be overspending. The same goes for ultra-high-end workstations that pull closer to 2000W under load. You'll need a larger UPS that can sustain that draw for any meaningful length of time. In those cases, the extra cost of the double conversion design becomes hard to justify. Let's get into the practical strengths. First, the double conversion topology does the heavy lifting by delivering a clean sine wave output regardless of input quality. In my tests, plugging the unit into a slightly noisy utility line didn't translate into any visible flicker on a high refresh rate monitor. That matters if you're doing video editing or running CAD software where voltage irregularities can cause artifacts or, worse, corrupt files. The online nature means the UPS isn't waiting for a blackout to kick in, it's constantly conditioning the power, so you never experience that brief switchover lag that can trip a sensitive PSU. Another strong point is the battery equalization technology. Many UPS units let the batteries sit idle for months, which can lead to uneven cell degradation and a shorter overall life. CyberPower's equalization feature runs a soft equalization cycle every few weeks, which should keep the internal cells balanced. I haven't logged a full year of operation yet, but the indicator on the LCD panel shows that the equalization cycle completed without any error flags, which gives me confidence that the batteries will stay healthier longer than a plain vanilla UPS. The full-color LCD control panel is more than just a pretty display. It tells you real-time load, battery capacity, estimated runtime, and even lets you toggle between normal and economy modes. The economy mode throttles the inverter to extend battery life when you're running light loads, useful if you only need a few minutes of backup to finish a document. The intuitive navigation means you don't have to pull out a laptop to check status. A quick glance tells you everything you need. Connectivity is another area where the unit shines for the hands-on buyer. The CyberPower Power Panel app connects over Ethernet, giving you remote monitoring, automatic shutdown scripting, and email alerts. I set it up on a small Windows server, and when the UPS transitioned to battery, the app sent me a push notification and gracefully shut down the server's services within minutes. For anyone who runs a headless NAS or a small virtualization host, that remote control could be the difference between a clean shutdown and a corrupted VM. Now for the practical weaknesses. The biggest one is the weight. At roughly 60 pounds, it's not something you'll casually lift and rack mount on a whim. If you're planning a portable lab that you move from room to room, the heft could be a deal breaker, especially if you have a standard rolling rack that's not built to carry that load. Also, while the 7 outlets sound generous, The mix of 6 standard and 1 L520R can be limiting if you have a lot of equipment that uses the L-type plug. UL